Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. So how are you?
Hey, good. How are you guys?
I'm good. So they were all chitty chatty, so I made them all mute for now. We have one of our coaches in here, that's Leah.
Okay. Hi, Leah.
And
Hi.
this is our TNT team, plus Alina and Ellen. They are our artistic level 10s.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So I wouldn't be surprised if we had a couple trickle in late. So, but congrats on your graduation.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, finally.
Yeah, how long have you been working on that degree?
8 years.
Wow.
The doctorate, yeah. So it was a long time.
Yeah. Do you have any job offers?
I actually had one from the Air Force that I spoke to yesterday, but they wanted me to move. And
to where?
They didn't know. They just had 100 different bases. So.
Oh my gosh.
And then I applied at a couple of hospitals here, so I'm just kind of waiting.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Well, so I saw you've spoken to groups of kids around Utah. Is that where you're from?
I'm originally from Utah, yeah, and then I lived in Idaho for a while, and I actually lived in Texas for 2 years, just training, and then I moved to different facilities, and then I ended up applying to school. I went to Idaho State University. I was training there. I got my undergraduate in chemistry, and then I went on to pharmacy school after that.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, and then I just finished.
Awesome. So I kind of briefed them on your gymnastics history, and so I don't know what kind of questions they have, but if you wanted to just kind of explain your experience in the sport. And
Sure. So I started when I was about 8 at a really small gym in this area that I grew up in that was only a few hundred people. It was really small. We had, I don't know if you're probably not even old enough to know what a ski floor is. Have you guys ever heard of a ski floor? So instead of like the fiberglass rods, what they would do is just screw skis, like snow skis, into the boards. So it was bouncy, and then lay the foam on top of it. So that's what I started on. And it was only about 40 feet long, so we couldn't do much. And then my coach told me that if I wanted to continue and get better, I needed to go somewhere else and try out other gyms. So I tried other gyms in the Salt Lake City area where there were a lot of bigger options. And so I bounced around and finally found a coach that I liked and started training with them, and started doing 2-a-days when I was 15. And then I was named to the junior national team, and then I was named to the senior national team, and then got to travel and do all that cool stuff. In my career, I won 20 world medals. I set 2 world records. I won 4 World Cups. And then in 2013, I had an injury which left me paralyzed from the chest down. So I actually use a wheelchair now. It was an amazing experience, and I think my injury was just one of those fluke things. I was never injured while training. Like, I never had any chronic things like any ankle injuries or anything like that. It was just kind of a fluke thing, and that's what happened. But then I was able to finish school, and then, like I said, I applied to the doctorate program for pharmacology and went through and finished that. So now I'm kind of just moving on from there. Yeah.
how has being a gymnast benefited you in the long term?
I really think that gymnastics is beneficial because it teaches you to work hard at a young age. You realize that if you want something, you have to work for it. Nobody can really do it for you. Your coaches are there to help you, but ultimately it kind of comes down to you to actually improve on your skills or learn something new. And in competition, you're the one that has to prove how ready and you are and everything like that. And I think it really helps build character because you become dedicated at a young age. You know how to time manage, you know how much time you have in the gym, and if you need to get X amount of routines done during a certain amount of time, you know how you have to do that. And I think that really helped me moving forward in school and with work and everything. Is I know if I have so much I need to do, then I need to try to manage my time accordingly to be able to get it all done in that time frame.
Yeah, that's awesome. How did you get involved in power tumbling? I know for our kids, our program's pretty new.
Oh, okay.
So not a lot of kids in the gym, like this may be our 4th year that we're going into, and still a lot of the kids in the gym don't really know what TNT is.
That's how it was when I was in Texas. That's how a lot of it was too, because artistic is obviously really well known in Texas, and then trampoline and tumbling was kind of a thing that nobody knew much about. But where I grew up in Utah, tumbling is actually the biggest thing. Artistic, there aren't very many artistic gyms. So my sisters started at just kind of like a day camp when they were, because I have 2 older sisters, and so they were doing like this day camp. It was like dance, cheer, gymnastics, just kind of some random thing. And I went with them one day that they were doing gymnastics, and I could do stuff. We had a trampoline in our backyard, and I could do some really ugly flips and stuff. So I decided to go with them. And one of the coaches there saw me and talked to my mom. So without me knowing, she signed me up for tumbling classes. And they actually ended up putting me on the competitive team right away. But tumbling was really, because I thought artistic, because I had seen artistic on TV and everything, but I'd never heard of tumbling at that age. But there weren't any artistic programs in the area. So I just started off in tumbling and went from there. So like I said, in Utah, it's almost reverse of everywhere else, because tumbling's kind of the big sport, and then trampoline and artistic are kind of not as big. Like as far as competitions go, there's definitely more participants in tumbling as opposed to trampoline, and artistic gyms are more spread out and harder to find.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What did it take to go from the point of being a rec gymnast to getting a 24?
I don't know. Like I always loved going to the gym, and when I started at that small place in my hometown, I wouldn't say trained. I'd say I practiced an hour and a half twice a week. And I remember being there and my mom coming to pick me up and me wanting to show her things. And so I'd run over to a mat or something and want to show her something new that I had learned. And they would, like, I remember my coach like turning the lights off and being like, "You need to go, it's time to go home." So I never really, from a young age, I never wanted to stop. And I think being in the gym only a couple of days a week was really fun. And I loved learning new things, and I loved, I remember asking my coach, like I would think of skills in my head without knowing what it was. Like I remember like when I first learned to back tuck, and then I asked like, "Well, what's it called if you keep your legs straight?" And she told me, "Well, it's a layout." And I was like, "Well, what if you do a turn during a flip? What's that called?" So stuff like that. Like it was definitely just a lot of fun when I got to the competitive team. And then as far as like when I started training twice a day and taking it more seriously and being on the national team and going to camps and competitions and stuff, it definitely became more of, it was still fun, but it was more work and more serious, I guess, because obviously they took competitions pretty seriously at that level. And when we went to camps and we had to fill out, so when you're on the national team, things may have changed since then, but when I was on the national team, we had a national team coordinator, and every month we had to send in what they called was a monthly report, where it had this whole list of things, like it was how many hours you trained that month, how many turns you took, how many completed routines you finished, how many attempts you took, how many failed routines, how many hours you spent conditioning. Like it was a process. So it definitely was, even though it was fun and I still loved training and competing and everything that came with it, but there was like a homework aspect, and then obviously just being in the gym and not goofing around and, you know, having to be held accountable for your training. And if you go to a competition and mess up, it's probably because you weren't training hard enough.
Yeah. So when you first became senior elite, your first competition kind of took you by surprise, right?
Oh yeah, I remember my very first one. So that was another thing that I think has changed since I first went senior, but because they split up junior elite and senior elite was based on age. But when I was first on the scene back in like 2004, I think was my first senior competition, I was actually too young. So I was allowed to compete senior in the United States, but when I went internationally, I had to compete as junior. So I made the senior national team, and I remember my very first senior competition, I fell on my first pass and in prelims, and then that was like a huge slap in the face. And so I remember being like panicked, like, what am I doing? Like, I'm not ready to be elite. I'm not ready for this. And then I remember my coach kind of gave me a talking to, and then after my second pass, I did well. And after prelims, I think I was second, and then going into finals, like I just had to kind of regroup and really, I did well. I did better under pressure. So I definitely put more pressure on myself. And I just remember that feeling of messing up and how terrible that felt. And I didn't want that to happen again. So I ended up doing really well in finals, and I ended up winning. So that was I think it was a good lesson to learn quick, is because having that mistake and learning from that when you go to compete, like, you need to be focused and ready. And so I think that was a bad surprise, but then it ended up being a pleasant surprise, I guess, because I learned that that's one thing, is even if you have a mistake, I felt like that really taught me to move on and try to regroup and not give up before it's over, because you don't know what can happen.
Right.
So after falling on my first pass and then being able to hold myself together mentally and not falling apart and crumbling, then being able to regroup and to learn from it from a positive perspective, then it actually ended up benefiting me, I guess.
So you competed tumbling, but you also competed double mini, right?
Yeah, I did. I didn't train it as much. I think I was kind of fortunate because what I did in tumbling kind of translated over into double mini pretty well. So I didn't train it as much. And I did, as far as like difficulty wise and things for double mini, I did pretty easy routines, but I really focused on more aesthetics, because obviously your aesthetic score, having 3 aesthetic scores kind of overpowers difficulty. So I did well, but I didn't train it quite as much as tumbling. Tumbling was more work for me than double mini.
Would you compete both events in the same competitions, or?
Yeah, I did that a lot, and it was hard, honestly, in some competitions, just depending on, because when you go to the bigger competitions, especially internationally, like world championships or something, the scheduling, they try, but it's not perfect. So there were times where I would finish tumbling or double mini and like have to run back to staging. And when you go to big competitions like that, so when you go to staging, it's actually in a separate building, because they would have like a gym set up for you to warm up, and then they would come over to line you up. So I would have to run. I remember one time we were in Canada, and it was across the street, and it was in November, and there was snow. And so like I remember I finished, and I had to run back over and get ready for double mini, and I was getting there just as they were lining up and then going back over. So that was hard, because switching back from tumbling to double mini is like not super easy, because they're so different. And then also like trying to keep your mental composure and not getting flustered and stuff like that. It was tough, but
Yeah, I can't imagine switching. Ridiculous. I was stressed out when we just switched floors. Like, so you've been to a lot of world championships. That's a lot of different countries. Is there anything that you've taken away from all the traveling?
Yeah, I loved traveling. Like, I can't tell you how many countries I've been to. I've been to a lot. I've been to every continent. And one thing that I learned that I really appreciate, and I think everybody, if they're given the opportunity, should do, is to go to a different country just to see what life is like, because I think we take a lot for granted here. We're spoiled here. And so to these other countries and seeing kind of what life is like for them, it really makes you appreciate what we have here. And it also makes you just appreciate that even though something's so common for us here, it's not for them. And so going to another country and being a guest there, I think it helps you realize and appreciate other societies and cultures. And so I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a really cool experience that I got.
And how old were you during your first international competition?
My very first international was a junior world championships in Germany. And so going to Germany was cool, but it was nice because never being to Europe before when I was 15, everybody in Germany speaks English. So it was really easy that way because asking for directions, ordering food, all that kind of stuff was a lot easier than it like going to China or somewhere, you know, where English isn't so natural to all of them.
Yeah. I know you competed some artistic competitions, right?
Yeah, one.
One?
So that kind of happened I remember just kind of being bored in training in like 2000, I think it was 2010. So my coach and I just kind of for fun, like as a warm up, or if I had finished training tumbling, just to do something different, I would try skills on the floor exercise. And then vault was kind of like double mini, honestly. Like you just run down and kind of throw yourself around. So I just did it kind of as fun. And then I actually had a coach his name's Mike Burns. I think he still is, but he was the head coach of Minnesota State University's gymnastics team. And he saw a video or something of me and contacted me and told me that I should do it. And so, do you know who Alexei Nemov is? He was a Russian artistic gymnast. He won the 2000 Olympics. So he's wow, that's 20 years ago.
The name is familiar.
Yeah, he helped me, what's the word? Choreograph a floor routine. So because like that was the thing that was the hardest, is because the way you step to the corner and all that kind of stuff, like it's very specific. And I didn't know if you turned a certain way, like you would get a deduction. So he helped me put together a floor routine. And then I was able to vault kind of just by trying it and learning, I guess. So we had a vault into the pit, and then we put some mats in, and then I just started vaulting. And so I did one competition. I think it's called the Winter
Cup.
Or Winter Cup, yeah, in Vegas.
Yeah, our guys go to that.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I did that competition once, and it was cool because I did well on vault. I don't remember where I placed, but I only did floor and vault. And I remember, so that was in 2000, I think it was 2010, and all of the returning Olympians from 2008, I ended up beating them on floor, which was kind of cool. And then I wanted to continue doing it, but I don't know, I just kind of got busy, like with tumbling season kind of picking up, because that was in February, I believe. So I had to start getting ready for competition. So I just kind of took a backseat to that and never continued after that.
What vault did you compete?
Soup double full.
Wow.
So I tried Yurchenko.
Tumbler.
I tried Yurchenko's because all artistic people I talked to said Yurchenko's are easier, but I could never get the timing of the like back handspring part. Like I was always either too high, or I would go in and like crunch and hit my head. So I stuck with soups.
Do you have any involvement with the current national team?
With the national team, no, but so I was the athlete representative for trampoline and tumbling for years, but you can only hold that position after you've competed for so long. Like there's a window that you had to have competed in like the last 5 years, I believe. So I was in that position for a while, and then I've since been taken out and somebody else has been put in. But then with the U.S. Olympic Committee, so with the U.S. Olympic Committee that's over all Olympic sports, they have this thing called the Athlete Advisory Committee. So there's one representative for every sport. So there's one representative for all gymnastics, one representative for swimming, track and field, soccer, like all Olympic sports. And Nastya Liukin and I have rotated back and forth. So I've served and gone to a couple of meetings for them where we meet together. So all the athletes from all the from sports, so USA Gymnastics would send me a list of complaints or concerns from some of the Olympic athletes. We would go to this meeting. Everybody from every sport or federation would present concerns that athletes had. And then from there, they would take from the Athletes Advisory Committee, the board would then take it on to the US Olympic Committee, if that makes sense. And so,
yeah.
So I've been able to serve in that capacity, but not necessarily directly with just the trampoline and tumbling national team, but I guess on a bigger scale with the all of gymnastics.
Yeah. Do you think that it's time they put tumbling in the Olympics?
Oh gosh, yes, I thought that 20 years ago.
Long overdue.
It's been so frustrating because So one of the steps to become an Olympic sport is a sport has to be an Olympic, what do they call it? An Olympic exhibition sport. So what that means is at the actual Olympics, the sport will be displayed as an exhibition. So they'll have like a mock competition, pretty much just for the spectators to get
an idea.
Yeah, of what it is. And tumbling's been an Olympic exhibition sport since 1992. So every year, like we were thinking, because trampoline had been an exhibition sport, and then in 1999, it was announced that it was going to be put into the 2000 Olympics. So it's not like they gave you a 5-year span and like said, oh, this many years tumbling will be added or trampoline will be added. But so I remember when I was competing, like every year before the Olympics and even of the Olympics, like we were waiting for some kind of announcement that it was going to be put in, but unfortunately it just hasn't yet.
Yeah. So are you coaching or?
No, I haven't.
Your involvement?
Honestly, right now it's pretty minimal. I do like little things like this when I can, and other things as far as sometimes I'll have people ask me questions or ask for advice and stuff and send me videos and stuff. And I love doing that. Like I love to be involved. I'm not near a gym right now currently. And then when I was in graduate school, just my scheduling just didn't work out as far as trying to volunteer or help out or anything like that. But I'd love to be, but unfortunately I'm not much involved right now.
But you've been weightlifting, right?
Yeah. So I don't know, something, because after my injury, like it was hard, like doing gymnastics for so long and training 6 hours a day. And that was all I did, like it was weird to go from that level of intensity to almost nothing. So when I, about a year ago, when I was getting near the end of graduate school and things were kind of slowing down for me, then one day I was just like, why am I not working out? So, because I honestly didn't when I was in school, like I would go to school, come home, study, go to sleep, and then just do it all over again. So now that I have some time for me, yeah, I've been trying to go to the gym. It's been kind of weird with the whole COVID-19 thing with gyms closed, but I've been doing some home workouts and stuff. So doing what I can. We just got, they announced today that May 26th is when gyms will reopen here. Where are you guys at again?
We're in central Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, oh, okay. Yeah. Do you guys have any news as far as gym openings or not yet?
It's kind of up in the air. Oh, so okay. We're in the half of the state that is in the yellow. So it's a good sign, at least. We're going to progress a little bit faster, but they don't have a definite date they can tell us.
Things change every day, so yeah, it's really frustrating.
Yeah. How has weightlifting helped your recovery, I guess you could say, like your mobility?
I think it's been good because like as far as like, so they call it transfer. So like when I'm in my wheelchair, if I want to get into the car or on the couch or into bed, anything like that. So when I have to move out of my chair, it's definitely made it easier having more strength and things like that. And just endurance, like pushing around. Like, so before I graduated, our last year, so I did a residency program after graduating for a year. And I would go to, I would be at different clinical sites for 6 weeks. So I went to a hospital. I went to a couple of different hospitals actually, but my last one, I was at the hospital, and with the whole COVID outbreak and everything, it was definitely an experience. But just moving around the hospital, because like I know some nurses that wore like the Fitbits and stuff, and they would do like 50,000 steps a day. It's a lot of getting around, and I think that that's definitely helped my endurance and cardio and just things like that. Because, like I said, when I was in school and doing like next to no physical activity, like I would literally wake up, go to school. So I would sit at my desk and then come home, sit at my desk at home, study, and get in bed. So it was, and I think I just had that like aha moment of like, I'm just like wasting away, not doing anything. So I got down to 118 pounds, which was small for me. And I actually just weighed myself earlier. Oh no, I guess it was last week, and I was 155. So I've gained more weight back, and I think I've gotten more muscle back that I had lost after my injury and stuff. So I think it's good. And I think that's the thing too, is just being a competitive person, like starting gymnastics so young and competitions at 8 years old. It was always just, if you're going to do something, then why not try to be the best at it? So I've made some friends who do wheelchair bodybuilding. And so my ultimate goal would be to do like a bodybuilding competition. I obviously have a ways to go to catch up to them, but that's kind of like what I decided, if I'm going to start lifting weights and working out, then I'm going to go all in and do the whole thing. So hopefully in a year or two, then I'll be doing that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thanks.
I know Leah has to go to work soon. Leah, do you have any questions you wanted to ask?
You guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Basically, my question is, if I get too personal, like, stop me, but how did you deal with, like, the mental aspect of, like, not being able to walk again? Like, how did you deal with, like, your mental health?
It was honestly hard. The first couple of months especially. So it happened in August, and I was in this hospital rehabilitation place in Denver, Colorado, who specializes in spinal cord injuries and paralysis. I was there from August to December, so it was a long time. And the first couple of months were hard. The hardest part, I remember, the first month or so, I remember sleeping and then waking up and thinking like, oh, it was all just a bad dream kind of thing. And then waking up and like reliving it and having just that like hour of, oh my gosh, like, no, this is really happening. So it was hard.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like the brain's an amazing thing. And I think if you just learn to not let yourself go there, whether it be like I know some friends that had to have ankle surgery or something in training and just like having to take months off. And I remember some of them being like, oh my gosh, this sucks. And it's like, well, yeah, it sucks right now, but think about what you can do. And so I think that if you just have the mentality of just knowing like life is unpredictable and sometimes things happen, but if all you can do is pick up what pieces you can and move on. And if you don't let yourself go there, then it's amazing that you won't, if that makes sense. But
I feel that. Like,
sorry, go
like
ahead.
like a mind over matter sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I'm not going to lie, like it sucks. Like it's not fun, but I don't know. Everybody has something they have to deal with. What happened? Yeah, I could sit in the dark and cry, or I can move on and be a doctor and compete in bodybuilding. So I guess that's what I'd rather do, I guess.
That's so cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Have a good day at work.
Oh, I'm going to keep you guys in my ear for now, but I'm going to mute myself and just stick you in my pocket for as long as I can.
Okay.
Yeah. Because this is more interesting than dealing out soup, salad, and breadsticks at Olive Garden.
So, Kalon, we all know gymnastics holds a risk like a lot of other sports do. Do you wonder how your life might have been different if you didn't do gymnastics, or wouldn't you change anything?
Again, I'll be perfectly honest. I have thought about that. Like, what if I would have quit after I won this competition? Or what if I would have quit when I was 10? Or what if I never did gymnastics? And I have thought that, but I don't want like my experience either, because I can tell you I've met a lot of gymnasts over the years from all over the world. And what I don't want what's happened to me to scare any of you, because I only know of one other person who had a similar injury to mine out of the thousands that I've met or heard of or seen or anything like that. So there is a risk. There's a risk, but that's another thing is when I was in that hospital I spoke about in Denver, Colorado, that specializes. So everybody there had some type of spinal cord injury. So they were dealing with paralysis of all certain levels. I was the only sports related injury there. I met people who, diving was a big one. So people who were recreational, like on a boat and dove off in the lake and it was more shallow than they thought and ended up like breaking their neck or their back. That was the most common. But I met a lady who was on her lunch break, was walking across the street to a Subway, went to step off the curb, misgauged where her step was, fell, and broke her neck. So there's a risk in getting out of bed in the morning, you know? So I think that like obviously with gymnastics, maybe you're at a higher risk because you're flipping in the air, but there's a risk, like I said, like getting out of bed, like going to the kitchen for a glass of water, there's a risk in everything. So I hope like my experience and the situation I've been through, I don't want that to scare any of you. And I do feel bad for the sport as a whole because I don't want people to associate what happened to me with gymnastics necessarily, if that makes sense, because yes, there is a risk, but like I said, my injury and people that I know who've had a similar situation, it's extremely rare.
Right. Okay, Jen has a question.
I gotta go. I'm also leaving. My daughter's Molly, and I am not a part of the TNT program, but I coach at the gym. And I just want to say, I sent that is because I think that it's really important for what you said, that you know, it's really important for these kids to recognize that you loved what you did and what happened, right? And that, you know, it sounds as to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you don't regret any part of your experience with gymnastics. And in fact, you're continuing it to the best of your abilities in whatever capacity that you can handle it. And, you know, once I think gymnastics becomes a part of you, that's sort of what happens, is it continues however you can manage it for the rest of your life, right? And so the regret is not, you know, part of it as much as you're thankful for what you did have when you had it, and now you're using what you've got to continue forward. So I think it's an amazing story is what I wanted to tell you, and I feel very blessed that you're here talking to us about this. So
like I said earlier, like as far as wishing I would have quit or something because of what happened to me, who's not to say that I did quit gymnastics, but then I was in a car accident and the same thing happened. Like it's
right.
I think it's impossible to say if I would have done this, this would have happened. But
right.
Yeah, but like you said,
all the amazing things you did. I mean, those are amazing things in a lifespan. There are people that will never do as much as you've done.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm coming from a small town in Utah. I have friends that I went to school with that have never been on an airplane, and I've been all over the world. And it's because of gymnastics that I was given those experiences. So
yeah.
I'm eternally grateful for the sport, and I've met amazing people, and like I'd never have an experience doing something like this if I wasn't involved in the sport. So no, I don't regret anything, and I'm grateful for the sport, and I think it's amazing, and I hope that if anything, I can motivate you guys to continue and to push yourselves and be the best that you can be, because that's, in my eyes, that's the most amazing thing.
Yeah, my daughter's watched your videos, and I am new to the tumbling world of that competitiveness, not the gymnastics world, but that is newer to me as a parent. And you're amazing. It was amazing. It's amazing. So yeah, I mean, just amazing. So thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Does anybody else have questions? Molly? Molly, you're muted.
Okay, so what was your favorite TNT event and why?
My favorite event was tumbling, because tumbling, my body, well, you can't really tell on camera, but I'm short and I was a little bit stockier. So tumbling was my favorite because it came the most naturally for me, I thought, with my body type. And I loved tumbling. I fell in love with it, and I still love it because I think it's amazing. I think doing tumbling and even just watching tumbling is a huge adrenaline rush. And I don't know, I wish I had a better answer than that, but I just thought it was the most challenging, but also the most rewarding and beautiful and intense, cool sport. So I love tumbling. That was my favorite.
Is there anything in tumbling you really struggled with, or did things just come to you naturally because you loved it?
It did come. I would say things came more naturally to me than maybe some other kids that I trained with. But I did have a little episode when I was younger, when I first started learning twisting. My coach called them the twisties. So I remember I learned a full. Then when I started learning double fulls, for a little bit, I would get lost in the air and I would just twist until I hit the ground. So I would go up and just keep twisting and then hit. But then it finally just clicked back, like, okay, so for a full, I go slow. For a double full, I go faster. And I just kind of But that was one thing I remember I struggled with for a while.
Anyone else have questions? Bryn.
So how did you know that gymnastics or just TNT is what you would want to do, like, for the rest of your life, pretty much? Like, how did you know that that was kind of like the career path you wanted to take, I guess?
So when I first started tumbling, I was 8, like I said, but I was only going twice a week. So I was still involved in, like, I played baseball, football, basketball for a little bit, but I was short, so I wasn't very good. And I honestly, I wasn't much of a team sport person. That was another thing I really liked about tumbling, was it was individual, where it was me and the tumbling floor. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't have to depend on teammates to pass me the ball or things like that. And I don't know, I liked that more. And it came naturally for me. And like I said, I just thought it was, once I saw it and was exposed to it, I just thought it was so cool that I didn't want, nothing else really interested me. I thought it was a lot more cool to see somebody tumble down the floor than to watch somebody kick a ball. So
Were you ever that kid that did all your tumbling passes outside on the grass?
Yes. I remember like that.
Andrew.
Yeah, we have a little one that's can relate to you a lot. Hayden, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I was just pointing out that it was Andrew, other than us introducing ourselves, because I feel like we kind of know him and he doesn't know us.
Yeah, if I scroll, oh, now I can see your names.
I'm Hayden. I'm 16.
You're 16. Yeah. Ellen? Is that Ellen? And then Thomas? Is it really Thomas or was it Caden?
Oh, Hayden. Yeah.
Oh, Hayden. Oh, no, sorry. What was the boy's name in the glasses? You're muted, buddy. I can't hear you.
Thomas.
Oh, Thomas. Okay. And then Andrew, Leah, Bryn, and Alina. Okay, cool. All right, yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, we have quite a few aspiring high-level tumblers here, so I'm surprised they're not chatting your ear off right now.
Feel free to ask if you want. Doesn't matter. Sure. Ellen, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do artistic gymnastics, so this is kind of new to me. But how did you know you want to do like tumbling versus like the other events?
Well, like I said, like I honestly wanted to do artistic because I had seen it on TV, and I didn't know, as a little kid, I didn't know what tumbling was. But in my area, there was only tumbling. There weren't any artistic programs. So I kind of just got sucked into tumbling, but then I realized I loved it. And once I got older, like I did learn how to do a kip, but I was probably 12 by the time I learned how to do that. So I was way behind. So it just never was an opportunity for me to do artistic, even though initially that's what I wanted to do. But then once I started tumbling, I realized that that's actually what I liked.
Yeah, like did you was there a certain deciding point? Like you mentioned you did double mini. Like is that something that you just choose, like I'm going to do one of like those tumbling events, I guess?
A lot of people, usually in my experience anyways, it seems like when kids are young, they'll start and do all three. They'll do trampoline, double mini, and tumbling. And then once you get older, because the apparatus, like trampoline to tumbling, is so different, that kind of like how with artistic, like Nastya was really good at bars, but she's really tall and skinny. So she's not a great vaulter, and she's not great on floor because she's not as strong. Whereas like Sean Johnson or Simone, well, Simone's great on everything, so she's like Sean Johnson. I don't know if you guys remember her. That's kind of going back a while, but she was really good on floor and vault, but not so good on bars. And so it's kind of the same with trampoline and tumbling. Is usually the people like Nastya are better on trampoline because they're thinner and with longer legs and everything. It's easier and it looks better for them, where tumbling is more like a Sean Johnson kind of thing. So and then usually, like when you're on the national team especially, they want you to really focus. Like if you're good enough, they want you to spend more time focusing on one event rather than doing both. But like I said, with double mini, I just kind of kept doing it, but not really doing it. I don't know. I guess I did it just enough to maintain what I had. And so, yeah. That makes
See,
sense.
Liz, I can only do one.
I told you can do one, but you should train.
You
trampoline
wouldn't
and
let me.
tumbling. Well, we have to travel about 4 hours to competitions, remember? So we're in the middle of the state, and we have to go down to like Baltimore area for competitions.
Gotcha. Do you have a question?
Oh, sorry, what?
Does Thomas have a question?
So growing up in tumbling or gymnastics in general, did you have any role models? Like, I know you've mentioned some people, but like anyone specifically did you like look up to?
Oh, yes, I definitely did. Like Alexei Nemov, that one gymnast I told you about, he was actually a big hero of mine because when I was probably about your age was when he was the big name in gymnastics. And then as far as tumbling goes, you guys wouldn't know him, but because he was old when I was young. His name's Alexei Krivzhinevsky. He's from Russia, and he was at the time he was like multiple-time world champion, and he was a really nice guy. And I actually got to meet him, and he was really cool. So he was one that I looked up to. But yeah, I think trying to think of others. Those are the only ones that are coming to mind, but I definitely looked up to it. And that was another cool experience, was having these role models, like watching the Olympics and seeing some of these people in artistic and everything else. I got to meet them. So I'm actually friends with Simone. I've met her personally once, but we've talked and texted quite a bit. So she's actually really sweet. And then I don't know if you guys know Sam Peshek. Do you guys know who she is? Do you? Okay, she's really sweet. It's Bridget Sloan. We're friends, and so yeah, that was another cool experience. I got to meet these people in artistic gymnastics that I otherwise never would have met. But I got to go and do a couple of things where they were at, and so we would sign autographs and stuff like that together. So that was a lot of fun.
Did you ever do the Kellogg's tour? I'm not sure what it was called then.
Yeah, I never did because it always conflicted with our World Championships training schedule. So I never got to. I got to go and watch it, and I knew some of the people, so like I would get like they would take us on the tour bus, and we would hang out with them for a bit and stuff. But that was actually the last year that I went was 2012. Like Michaela Maroney broke her ankle, like doing it.
Yeah.
Time, but I didn't do that, but I did get to do. So have you ever heard of St. Jude's Children's Hospital?
Yeah, my old gym does their competition every year.
Oh, okay. Where's it at now? Because I think they changed.
The competition? Yeah, I'm not sure. The gym was in Chicago.
Oh, okay. So it was probably the same one because it was in Peoria, Illinois.
Yeah, that's it.
There, and like I did like a little demo, and then they would usually have me and then an artistic Olympian, and we would give like a little speech kind of thing and then sign autographs. So I got to do that with Bridget one year. That's how I met Bridget. And then later I met she was at Woodward at the same time I was. And then do you guys know Paul Hom? Because I feel like I'm going back.
I do.
So and so that was an experience I got to do. And then going to Woodward, I went to Woodward a lot, and they would have artistic Olympians and other athletes and stuff that I would get to meet. And then the Arnold Schwarzenegger.
The Arnold invite. Yeah, our boys went to that last year.
Oh, really? Oh, cool. Yeah. I got to do that for a few years, and that was a lot of fun and another opportunity to meet other gymnasts and Arnold and all that kind of stuff. So.
Do you by chance know Trevor Howard?
Oh, I don't know if I do.
He's newer to the national team.
Artistic or trampoline and tumbling?
Artistic.
Okay, I don't know if I do.
Oh. He was our boys coach for a little bit. But he was a Penn State gymnast, and I was on the national team. But you brought up Woodward, and that's really close to us. It's maybe 45 minutes, so most of our kids have been there.
Yes, okay.
And Trevor was a guest coach last summer.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Right. Molly.
Molly.
hand up for a while.
Okay, so what broad floor passes were you most scared of, and how did you get through them?
Which ones was I most scared of? So one year when I broke the world record in 2011, probably again before you guys were born, but it was in Denmark at a competition. And my coach, there was a guy that I competed against named Yang Song. He was from China. And the Chinese were always really mysterious. Like you never knew what they were going to do. So I remember my coach and I were talking before the competition started. And he told me he wanted me, because we had talked about me doing this pass. And I had never done it. And he told me, he said, I want you to do it in prelims. I was like, okay. So I was really scared. It was, do you want me to tell you what it was?
We'll see if they can tell.
Please.
It was round off, full in, full out, straight. I don't know if you guys know what that is. So like a double layout with one twist in each flip. So you do like a full and then another full, and then whip, back handspring, full in, full out again, whip, back handspring, full in, double full out. So, but I was scared. I wasn't scared because I was afraid I was going to get hurt. I was more afraid of messing up because I hadn't done it before and I didn't like not being prepared. So that was scary. But I just remember thinking, even though I hadn't done the pass, I had worked on the parts in the gym and I was prepared and I was physically conditioned and strong enough that I knew I could do it. So I think just trusting in yourself and trusting if your coach tells you something, you trust your coach because they know you probably better than you know yourself sometimes. So if you just trust yourself, trust your coach, trust that they know what they're doing, and that if they tell you something, then you're probably ready to do it then.
So when you say you've never done it, you never did it full out in practice either.
Yeah, not in practice. I hadn't done the full thing. I had split up. So what I would do in training was like right before a competition, we would do full passes. But sometimes like if I was tired or if we had some time in between competitions or if I was trying to work on like a new combination, we would split it up where I would do the first half and then I would train the second half and then put it up. So I had trained the parts, but I hadn't done the whole thing. So
right.
Little brain nerve-wracking to do it for the first time in competition.
Yeah, I bet.
Hayden? I was just wondering, so like I know I like wiggle my fingers before I can like do a pass or do something like that. Do you have a weird like thing that helps you to like
I swear like if you aren't OCD you can't do gymnastics because I would do was I used a lot of chalk because my hands and feet would always get really sweaty, especially if I was nervous. So I would have a lot of chalk and I would do brush my hands and then I would blow on them and then like, you know, obviously boys wear shorts. I would do a thing where with my finger and thumb, I would kind of like pull on the pants of my shorts, like just random little, I was a hand person, if that makes sense. Like I was always fidgeting before I went. Yeah, that kind of stuff. But yeah, for sure. I definitely did that.
Yeah, I just know that I can never actually do a pass without doing my like ritual almost.
I my steps when I ran, like I did. Yeah, I was crazy.
Yeah.
So, Andrew?
What or who convinced you into doing gymnastics or tumbling?
What convinced me? Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think just because it kind of came naturally for me. It was fun because I was learning new things and I just thought it was, like I said earlier, I think it was just so cool compared to, because like playing baseball and stuff like that was fun, but it wasn't as exciting as gymnastics because you're throwing and hitting a ball, where in gymnastics you're flipping your body around. So I thought that was a lot more cool and ninja-like rather than baseball.
Did you ever train trampoline?
I did. I wasn't very good.
Really?
My very first gym, they had just a black trampoline like that you would have in your backyard. And so those, like, you obviously have to jump really hard to have any height. And then I remember the first time I got on a Euro, it scared I was so scared. So I quit.
Yeah, our kids actually competed for almost 2 seasons on trampoline without owning a trampoline.
Oh, really?
Like we used tumble track to train trampoline and double mini until we got the equipment.
It was scary.
Yeah, the first few competitions I did, like I practiced on a black bed trampoline. I don't even remember what level I was. But then I remember going to the competition and being on a Euro and being like, oh my gosh, like I felt like I was, instead of bouncing and pushing, I was almost like trying to hold back the trampoline from bouncing me too high. So
yeah, Andrew's first competition, we were in training and he bounced off.
Oh my gosh.
And landed on a different trampoline.
They're bouncy.
I was so scared my first meet on a trampoline. Because I had gone 7 months on the team without actually touching one or being near one or seeing one.
I think that's the reason I like tumbling more, is because you're kind of the one doing the bouncing where the trampoline's bouncing you. So that's kind of scary to me.
Yeah, I'm the one in the like team who has no body control, but trampoline's my favorite.
Oh, okay.
So it doesn't add up very much. So the first time I was put on one, I think we scared all of ourselves to death.
Yeah, we went to a clinic at ETA in Jersey. Oh, okay. And Tatiana, the head coach there, was on Hayden's case a lot.
I didn't like her. She made me mad.
Okay, we have a question, Lena.
You said earlier that you did better when you were under pressure. Is that something that you had to like figure out, or were you always able to do that? Because I personally am not like that.
Well, you're not like that? Is that what you said? I think I just kind of learned from a young age, because starting off in competitions when I was younger and being from a small area, I was the only boy for a long time. So competitions didn't matter. Like I would just go and I could do perfectly, or I could go fall on my face and I still got the same thing. So, but then being in bigger competitions when I actually had competition and knowing that if I made mistakes, it was going to count against me. And, I don't know, just that was something that I always just kind of had, that like rush of adrenaline just always kind of helped me, and honestly became kind of addictive. And so even with school and stuff, like exams and stuff like that, like I honestly kind of liked the stress and anxiety and all that kind of stuff, because it kind of reminded me of competitions. No, it's just one of those things that I just always kind of liked. I don't know why, but.
So were you pretty overly critical of yourself? You said that whether you did it perfectly or you fell on your face, you acted as if it was the same.
I definitely wasn't one that would laugh if I made a mistake. Like I was always, and I still am, the hardest on myself, and I was always my biggest critic. And I remember going to competitions and like if I could do okay, and like I remember being upset in the car and my mom and dad kind of being like, oh, you did good, blah, 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 and whatever. And if I ever watched a video, I hate watching videos of myself, honestly, because even now, because like when I see them, I just see things that like I wish I would have fixed, or things that I should have worked on more and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm definitely my biggest critic. Molly, do you have a question?
So I kind of have 2 questions. So did you start in gymnastics or TNT?
TNT.
Oh, okay. So I was gonna say, if you started in gymnastics, do you think it was like an advantage, and like what made you choose TNT over gymnastics?
I really just started in tumbling because that's where I grew up. There was only a tumbling gym. There wasn't a gymnastics gym, but I don't really know, like going and doing a little bit of gymnastics I did after tumbling. that obviously gave me an advantage. It obviously didn't help if I wanted to try like pommel horse or rings or something, but I don't know. I think having experience in either or gives you an advantage. Like if you started in tumbling and you wanted to try gymnastics, it would obviously give you an advantage in those, like the like floor and vault maybe, but and gymnastics obviously having that experience with tumbling would help you too. But I don't think one over the other is more advantageous, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Andrew, do you have a question, buddy?
Yeah, this one kind of relates to me too. When you were in school, did anyone ever like make fun of you for doing gymnastics because it's mostly a sport that girls do?
Yeah, actually, that did when I was in elementary school when I first started. Because kind of like I said, I was the only boy in my area that did it for a long time, and I remember people were making fun of me. And then, kind of like how I talked about earlier too, I started tumbling on the grass during recess, and then they were all like, "Oh wow, that's cool!" So everybody thought it was really cool. And then after I started, a lot of boys in my area, my little brother, a bunch of his friends, there were a bunch of boys that started tumbling. So we actually ended up having more boys in the gym than girls. And I think it was kind of because I started and then boys saw what it actually was and then decided that they wanted to do it too. So, but yeah, I did get bullied a bit, especially in elementary school when I first started. And I think it's just because kids can be mean, and when something's different than what they're used to, kids usually can't understand that, and so they'll make fun of it. So if that has happened to you, I'm sorry, but don't let it affect you because bullying's dumb. It did happen to me, but like I said, once they kind of saw what it was about, then they all kind of shut their mouths and decided that it was okay.
Andrew, so what he's saying is just to go start flipping in the yard at recess.
Go
I've done that before. Someone said I was an insult for not playing football, and then I threw a standing back tuck. So.
Yeah, well, yeah, kids can be.
So Ellen is actually going off to NCAA gymnastics next year.
Oh, really? Where at?
West Virginia University.
Oh, is Craig the coach? Craig Ballard?
I don't think, no, not anymore, I don't think.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, right now it's Jason Butts and Travis Doak.
Okay, I don't know if I know them.
They're younger, I want to say, and I don't think they've coached for
Okay.
too long.
Congratulations, that's awesome.
Thank you.
You know what you want to major in?
Biology.
Cool, good, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Would you have any advice for that type of high-level competition?
It is, I don't want to scare you, it is going to be tough with college academics and everything and balancing gymnastics, but obviously you've made it this far and you know what you're doing, and collegiate gymnastics being at a level 10, because you are a level 10 currently, right? So just maintaining your skills, but doing it safely, make sure you're sleeping enough, eating right, doing your conditioning, because I have seen people before go to college, think it's a big party, and then end up getting injured in training because they aren't taking care of their bodies. So just focus on school, obviously, because that's really important. But when it comes to gymnastics, just be smart and don't do anything silly. And make sure you're sleeping and conditioning and eating, and you'll do well, I'm sure. Congratulations again. That's really cool.
Thank you.
Were you going to attend Stars and Stripes this year? It was supposed to be in Salt Lake City.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I was actually planning on it. I forgot about that. Was that supposed to be in like July?
Yeah, mid-July. They just canceled it like 2 days ago.
Oh, wow. I thought I saw a thing too that they had canceled all events for the rest of the year. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a good group of kids qualify. I think actually everyone in this chat had qualified.
No, really.
So. We were going to try to go, but next year.
Yeah. I don't know. I was talking to I have a friend from England actually she was a gymnast and now she's a coach there. And like they were talking about all their competitions. She has an athlete who had qualified for the senior team for Europeans and they had canceled it, but it sounds like it was canceled indefinitely. So they're not going to reschedule it. So she was bummed. But then I was telling her, like, we were talking about it and I was like, well, they haven't been able to train. So like, what's the
exactly.
competition? And like, nobody's been practicing. If anything, kids will get hurt and they won't be great. So I don't know, but yeah.
That's one of the things I said in my email when I did the submissions. I'm like, they might not be able to compete at this level just because we haven't been training, even if we do go.
Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. It's a bummer.
You have your own invitational, right?
Yeah, I did. So I actually.
Still happen?
I haven't. I don't know. I'd been talking to a production company because my plan was once I was done with school to not do it anymore. But I have had people ask about it, and then the company that was organizing it has reached out to me about possibly doing it in Texas instead of Utah. So I don't know. As of yet, no, nothing's planned. And especially with COVID now, I don't know exactly how that would work. But possibly again in the future. But as of right now, it's nothing scheduled. But yeah.
Is that only a TNT event or is it artistic also?
It is only trampoline and tumbling. But adding artistic, I think, would be cool. I loved going to competitions that were both artistic and TNT because it gives the artistic kids a chance to see what trampoline and tumbling is, and then it gives the chance because some TNT gyms don't have artistic. Like most gyms, honestly, that I know of, don't. It's either they're artistic or they're trampoline and tumbling. So
yeah,
I think it was good for both groups to see what the other's all about.
Yeah, wasn't Ellen and Lena, wasn't there a competition you went to last year or the year before that had TNT and artistic in Texas?
Yeah, I think it was Metroplex, the Metroplex Challenge. That was 2-3 years ago, I think. But yeah, it was cool seeing the different events in TNT.
Yeah,
that was my first time seeing like an actual competition, which is like that was before. Like we didn't really have that big of a program at that point either. And I know like all the artistic kids were competing at the time. We were all just like staring at it. So it's good to see.
Not really sure how to register it.
Yeah. The Woga Classic actually this year added trampoline and tumbling. That friend from England actually that I was talking about a minute ago, she her team to it because her boss is really good friends with the Leukins, and so they went to it in February, so kind of right before all of this shutdown madness started happening. But I think this year was the first year that they added trampoline and tumbling as well. So I think, which is good for the sport. I think the more exposure, the better. So I think it's cool.
Yeah, definitely. Are you friends with any trampolinists?
Yeah, so like Steven, you were talking about ET. Yeah, I've known Steven forever. We've been all over the world with each other. And Logan Dooley, I don't know if you know Logan.
Yeah, double mini guy.
Not double mini, Logan.
Synchro. He did synchro.
They were synchro partners forever, yeah. Oh my gosh, Logan, I have a funny story. He would kill me if I told you, if you knew it.
I mean, I don't know him personally. I know Steven.
He's funny. He's kind of, I don't know, he's a funny guy. But we were in Poland at a competition and we were on a bus going from the competition back to the hotel. And it was one of those buses, you know, that has like the bar that you can hang on, like to stand. So he was standing in the middle of the aisle and was holding on to both bars on each side. And this guy who was actually our national team coordinator at the time looked at me and like I was looking at him and he goes, "Hold his pants down." And I was like, okay. So like I went and pulled Logan's pants down and everything came down. It was embarrassing, but he's a funny guy. And then what other trampoline people? Do you know Dakota Ernest? Do you remember her? She's been done for a while, I think.
I know there's an older woman she lives down the street from me. I found this out the other day. Who is an ex-trampolinist from the Olympics. No idea who she is, but my dad did work on her house. I was like, huh?
Like, how old is older? Like
60s.
Oh, okay. Huh.
Wow.
It would be in Pennsylvania. I don't
It
know.
might be a question for George. Speaking of Steven, he says hi.
Oh, for me, yeah, he's a nice guy.
He thought he lost the Zoom link from me, but I just didn't send it yet.
Oh, okay.
He doesn't have much faith in his email organization.
He's a funny guy. I'm trying to think of a story with him, but I don't know, like we were together. Oh gosh, the trampoline guys, they were all kind of goofy, and they or before World Championships, when you're in Russia, they had all grown their hair out really long. And then right before the competition, we had a training camp in Texas, and they had shaved their heads. Oh, and they had let their facial hair grow out too. So they shaved their heads and left mullets and mustaches. And
oh my God.
for the competition, they were going to have mullets, mustaches, and medals. But then they ended up shaving all the rest of it off at the last minute. But
Do you think someone made them shave it off?
oh, yeah.
I can't imagine that ever happening anywhere else.
I don't think they let them do that. But yeah, they were funny guys.
Do you have any advice for these guys when we get back to the gym? They've been out of training since, I don't know, beginning of or middle of March.
If I were in your situation going back, I would just say try not to get frustrated, because I'm sure, like, not to be a downer, but you probably lost some of your strength, and it's not going to be as easy as it maybe was for you before, but just give it some time, be patient, listen to your coaches, and you'll be okay. But try not to, I know I would be frustrated, so don't let yourself get frustrated with yourself. Is that Molly?
So related to what you said, Liz has actually been sending us some strength stuff. So I'm trying to do some of the strengths that she's sending us. So
Good. Yeah, conditioning, I know it's not always fun, but it's really important, because the stronger you are, the easier it's going to be to do all the skills that you need to do. And so don't think of conditioning as a punishment. It's just part of it. So,
yeah.
Good.
Did you incorporate any weightlifting when you were a gymnast, or?
Yeah, I did some. So we did a lot of like plyometric conditioning. And so we did a lot of body weight stuff. We actually had a lot of artistic equipment, and we would use the bars a lot. And we did a lot of rope climbs, that kind of stuff. My coaches, I've always liked lifting weights, but my coaches were afraid that my upper body would get too big. And so they told me not to lift weights. But we did do a lot of like squats and stuff like that, like a lot of leg exercises and stuff. We did a lot of running. We did a conditioning book. Oh, have you ever heard of Insanity?
Yeah, I've done Insanity.
Yeah, we did those every once in a while. If it was too cold to run outside, because where we ran, we had a track outside of our gym.
Awesome.
So if it was too cold, we would do Insanity.
Wow, that's a lot harder than just running outside.
Yeah, so I was never a fan of running, but it was good. I'm sure it was important and did well, like as far as leg strength and cardio and that kind of stuff. But yeah, we did a lot of conditioning. There were times even where we would do more conditioning than actual training, especially in the off season and stuff, when we weren't focusing on doing so many competitive passes and stuff like that.
How much time did you spend focusing on basics?
Every day we did, I would say, probably a half hour. So one thing that we would do, so we had a warm up that we did every day that was, it was on a floor exercise. So like we would do running, different running drills. So like we run, swing your arms, run straight leg kicks, high knees, stuff like that. And it took about 5 minutes to do the running. Then it was about 20 minutes of stretching. And then we would do, we had to do 10 standing back tucks, and you had to stick or it didn't count. And then we would do the same with front tucks. And then at the end, we would go to the rod floor and we would do power hurdle, round off back handspring. We had to do back tuck to stick 3 times, pike, layout, full, and then double tuck. And then that was where it ended with that. And then on trampoline, we would do the same thing. We would have to do 5 of each basic every day. And then we did a lot of drills too, mostly for like different double skills and stuff like that. So, but.
Did you ever use trampoline to help your tumbling? Like just like a spot training event?
Yeah, we would do skills on there. And then if we were ever learning a new skill, the gym I was in, we didn't have a pit for a really long time. So we would break like full, for instance, like we would do drills on the trampoline where we would start with like a full, like standing full to a mat, and then standing full turned, and then standing full, miss your feet, and then go to your stomach. Like, do you know what a cruise is? I don't even know if they still call it a cruise.
Yeah, it's still a cruise.
Okay, so yeah, we would do like full cruise, stomach, and then eventually you would miss your feet, cruise, land on your stomach, and then full cruise, and then duck under right before you hit the trampoline and flip over, and then from there. So yeah, we did a lot of drills on trampoline for new skills, like before we actually had a pit. So, which makes it a bit tougher, I feel like. But
yeah, I didn't have a pit for a long time growing up either. We had a training belt though, which helped a lot.
Yeah, it's crazy to think doing that stuff without one, but yeah, we made it work. Is that Molly? Molly, do you have a question?
What was your favorite skill?
Honestly, probably a double layout was, for me, towards the, like when I had gotten to where I was, it was not a really difficult skill, but I felt like it was the most fun. So like my favorite thing to do was I would do, when I was warming up every day, I would always do it 3 times where I would do round off, 5 whips, back handspring, double layout, just kind of as a warm up. And that was my favorite thing, just to go as fast as I could. Like I always loved, we would do, sorry, I'm kind of bouncing all over the place, but every day too for conditioning, we would time our whips to see how fast and try to beat your time. So my favorite thing, honestly, was just to do 5 whips as fast as I could, back handspring, double layout, and see how high I could get, because it was fun because it would go really high and you could just kind of lay dead and relax in the air and just kind of float around. So that was probably my favorite thing to do.
When I was doing my judges training for tumbling, Bob Hallwig was the one training me, and he pulls up a video of you doing whips, and he says, whenever you're judging whips, you need to watch, or you need to have Kalon's whips in your head. Perfect whips.
He's a nice guy. He's a really sweet guy. Do you see him?
Yeah, I see him pretty often.
Oh, tell him hi for me when you see him next.
Yeah, we'll do. And Linda also.
Oh, okay. Yeah, of course. Yeah, tell them both hi for me.
Right, does anybody else have questions? I know you've been on Zoom for a while now with school also. So yeah, they're all doing cyber school.
When do you guys finish?
Beginning of June, I think.
Oh, so you still have a bit? Oh, I'm sorry.
I finished June 4th.
Oh, geez.
I'm June 3rd.
Oh, wow. That seems like, I think in Idaho what they did is they just gave kids like a bunch of work and just said, okay, you have until May whatever to turn all this in. So I don't know.
Wow.
As long as you guys are, but you're almost there.
All right, well, if no one else has questions, thank you so much, Kalon. This was great speaking with you.
Thank you.
Someone trying to say something?
I think I just hiccuped.
Oh. All right.
You guys do have
Okay.
any questions, let Liz know. She knows how to get a hold of me, so I'll be around.
Yeah, if you're ever in Pennsylvania, let us know. We're at Penn State main campus area.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, I love State College. It's a cool little
Oh,
town.
you've been here. Do you know Carlos Vasquez or Tony Beck?
Are those the name of streets, or are those people?
They're coaches at Penn State.
Oh, the coaches. Oh. Honestly, I met some of the guys. I don't know if I ever met the coaches. Do you remember Kevin Tan? Do you remember when he was there?
No, I've only been here since 2016.
Oh, okay, yeah, so he was before that, but I know a couple of the guys, but I don't know if I ever met the coaches, actually, so
Okay.
don't. But
Well, if you're ever here, let us know and get some coaches together and maybe get you in the gym. The kids would probably love to meet you in person.
so thanks again for having me. It was fun meeting you guys.
Hayden said thank you. She had to leave early for a school Zoom.
Okay. Well, good luck, guys, and I hope the gyms open up soon. You guys are able to get back in there and be safe, and don't be frustrated if things don't come back super quick, because it's been a long time you guys have been off, so that's tough.
Yeah.
But you all
Well, good luck on your job hunt, and hopefully you accept one that you like very soon.
To move, yeah.
Sounds like you have options, so.
Well, it's nice to meet you guys.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Have a good day at work.
Bye. Thank you. Thanks.
Bye.
All right. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good one.
I'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.